My name is Abigail Grace Miller. I was only 15 when my life changed forever. What I saw, I can never forget, and now I must share it with you.
My name is Abigail Grace Miller, and I was only 15 when everything I thought I knew about life was shattered. I wasn't special. I was just an ordinary high school sophomore from a small town in Texas. My days were filled with school assignments, doodles in my notebook, and music that was always a little too loud. I lived with my mom and my younger brother, Caleb. After my parents' divorce, weekends with Dad became routine, and though life wasn't perfect, it wasn't unbearable either. Church wasn't really my thing. I went sometimes, mostly when my grandmother insisted, but God felt like a distant figure, present, maybe, but not personal. I whispered short prayers at night, never sure if anyone was listening. Honestly, I thought faith belonged to other people, not to me. But then, in a single moment, everything changed. I died. And in that death, I encountered the one I had doubted, the one who held life and eternity. Jesus didn't just let me see him, he let me see what was coming for the world before the year 2026. When I tell you this, I don't want you to imagine a ghost story or some strange dream. I want you to hear it for what it truly is, the testimony of a girl who left her body, who met Jesus face to face, and who was shown 3 events that will shake the earth. Before those visions, I was just Abigail, the girl who blended into the background, unsure if God really cared. But now, I carry a weight in my heart, the responsibility to tell you what I saw, so you will not be unprepared. Before I died, my life looked like anyone else's. I was just a girl in Texas, doing what teenagers do, school, friends, music, and endless hours staring out the window, wondering if my life meant anything. I laughed with my classmates, argued with my brother, and sometimes felt invisible even in my own home. On the outside, I was ordinary. On the inside, I carried questions I didn't know how to ask. Faith wasn't part of my world. I didn't hate God, I just didn't think he was involved. My mom was busy working, my dad was somewhere else, and I didn't imagine that heaven cared about my late-night tears or the loneliness I sometimes felt. When I prayed, it wasn't real prayer, it was more like sending words into empty space. And when nothing happened, I convinced myself it was proof that God was too far away to notice a girl like me. Looking back, I realize how many of us live that way, half believing, half doubting, surviving without ever asking what our hearts are really starving for. I was living, but I wasn't awake. I thought I had time. I thought questions about God could wait until I was older. But eternity does not wait. Death found me when I least expected it. And in that moment, all the excuses I had built for why faith wasn't for me suddenly crumbled. The moment my heart stopped, I realized I was still alive, just not in the way I had known. I saw my body below, lifeless and still, yet I was floating, weightless, carried by something greater than myself. I wasn't afraid. The fear that once chained me had dissolved, replaced by a peace deeper than anything I had felt on earth. Ahead of me stretched a path of light. It was alive, warm, gentle, and irresistible. Colors I had no names for swirled around me, drawing me toward a tunnel made of pure radiance. There was no noise, no pain, only a silence that felt safe, like being held in love itself. And then, I saw him. I didn't need anyone to tell me who he was. My soul knew instantly, it was Jesus. He wasn't just glowing, he was light itself. His presence pierced through me, seeing every thought I had ever hidden, every wound I had ever carried. And yet, There was no judgment in his eyes. Only love. A love so complete that it broke me open. For the first time in my life, I felt fully known. Every tear I had ever cried was seen. Every question I had buried was heard. Every piece of me I thought was forgotten was held in his gaze. And in that moment, I understood, I had never been invisible to him. Not once. Friend, as you hear my story, I need you to know this truth: Jesus sees you too. He knows your tears, your hidden fears, and the weight you carry. His love is not distant, it is reaching for you right now. If you believe in that love and long for His protection, comment Amen below. Let it be your step of faith, and He will cover you with His shelter. As we walked on the path of light, I felt something happening inside me that words cannot fully capture. Every wound I had hidden, every scar no one else could see, seemed to melt away with each step. The insecurities I carried as a teenager, the fear of being unwanted, the ache of feeling invisible, were being healed in ways I didn't know I needed. It was as if Jesus was rewriting the deepest parts of me, not with condemnation, but with love that refused to let me stay broken. Then He stopped, turned to me, and His eyes grew more serious. His voice carried both tenderness and weight as He spoke. Abigail, there are things coming before the year 2026. I am not showing you this to frighten you, but to awaken hearts. What is ahead is not about fear, it is about preparation. Many will not be ready, not because they lack food or shelter, but because their hearts are unprepared. That is why I chose to show you. In that moment, I realized this was not just about me. It wasn't about one girl from Texas. It was about the world, about humanity itself. Jesus wasn't trying to terrify me, He was entrusting me. He was placing a responsibility in my hands, to tell others that time is short, and hearts must be ready. The weight of His words pressed deep into me, yet with it came a strange peace. I knew that what He showed me next would shake everything I thought I knew, but I also knew this: His love was bigger than the fear. As Jesus lifted His hand, the world unfolded beneath us like a living vision. I saw the oceans, vast and restless, rising with a force that felt unstoppable. Coastlines disappeared in moments. Cities that once stood proud were swallowed in silence, their lights extinguished by waves that moved too fast for anyone to escape. People ran, clinging to their children, grasping whatever they could carry, but many were frozen in disbelief, unable to process what was happening. My heart broke as I watched. The destruction was overwhelming, and for a moment I wanted to believe this was God's punishment. But Jesus' voice cut through my thoughts, steady and sorrowful. These are not punishments from my hand. These are the consequences of what humanity has sown. The earth is groaning because of neglect, and creation strains under the weight of mankind's choices. His words pierced me. I realized then that humanity had treated the planet like something to use, not something to cherish. We poisoned rivers, cut down forests, and ignored warnings. And now, the world itself was responding. The rising waters were not a random act, they were the mirror of what we had done. Tears filled my eyes. I wanted to look away, but Jesus kept His gaze on me, not to crush me, but to remind me, even in the collapse, there was still hope. When fear comes, He said, point them to the One who walks on the waters. My love is greater than the flood. The vision shifted, and what I saw next made my heart tremble. The world that had once glittered with lights at night was suddenly swallowed by darkness. One city after another went dark, until vast regions of the earth lay in silence. It wasn't just a power outage, it was as if the noise of the world had been taken away all at once. The constant hum of distraction, the endless rush of daily life, was gone. At first, fear gripped people. Confusion spread quickly, and silence felt heavier than the darkness itself. Yet, as I looked closer, something unexpected began to happen. Families gathered together. Neighbors who had barely spoken began to share food and candles. Circles of people knelt in prayer, in living rooms, in parks, even on the streets. Without the noise, hearts could finally listen. Jesus' voice came softly to me, filled with both sorrow and hope. When the lights of man go out, my light shines brighter. The silence that frightens them will become the space where they can hear me again. I felt tears well in my eyes. This darkness was not only about loss, it was about rediscovery. The collapse of electricity revealed what truly mattered. In the absence of screens and machines, faith was being reborn. The third vision unfolded before me, and this one felt heavier than the rest. I saw sickness spreading from city to city, crossing borders with terrifying speed. People coughed, weakened, and many suffered. But as I watched, I realized something even more painful. It wasn't the illness itself that broke people's hearts, it was the fear. Fear spread faster than the disease. Neighbors began to look at one another with suspicion. Friends avoided each other. Even families pulled apart, afraid to be too close. Doors that had once been open were now shut tight. And in that separation, loneliness grew like a second sickness, one that wounded souls far deeper than the virus could touch. My heart ached as I saw children longing to embrace their grandparents but being held back. I saw husbands and wives sleeping in separate rooms, not because of anger, but because of fear. The sickness was real, but the greater damage came from hearts closing against one another. Then Jesus spoke, his voice steady yet filled with sorrow. It is not my will that suffering comes. But humanity has turned away, not only from me, but from the care of one another. Fear divides, but love unites. Even in the days of disease, love must not die. His words struck me deeply. I understood then that the true danger was not the virus, but the way fear could destroy trust, silence compassion, and isolate souls. And I knew this was a warning, that only love strong enough to overcome fear would heal what was breaking apart. The vision grew heavier, and suddenly the light around me shifted into something darker. I felt the weight before I even saw it, the heaviness of despair, the ache of souls who had lost their way. And then I understood, I was being shown the reality of hell. It wasn't fire and flames like the pictures I'd seen in storybooks. It was something far more terrifying, an endless emptiness, a separation so complete that it burned deeper than any flame could. Souls were crying out, not because God had rejected them, but because they had rejected His love. I wanted to cover my ears, to run away, but I couldn't. Jesus held my hand tightly, his face filled with sorrow. He whispered, "This place was never meant for human souls. It was prepared for the devil and his angels. But those who refuse my love choose separation. And when the door of choice closes, this is where they remain." The words pierced my spirit. I saw faces, ordinary people, not monsters, people who had once laughed, lived, and dreamed. But now, they were trapped in regret, realizing too late that they had turned away from the only love that could save them. My heart broke. I wanted to cry out, to tell them it wasn't too late. But I knew, it was. The door had closed for them. And yet, even in that sorrow, I felt Jesus' light pressing gently against me. His love was still alive, still reaching. For those still breathing on earth, the path back was not lost. In that moment, I understood something I will never forget. Hell is not just about punishment. It is about absence, the absence of God's love. And heaven is not just a reward. It is home, the place where love never ends. Suddenly, the darkness faded, and I was surrounded by light unlike anything I had ever seen. It wasn't just brightness, it was alive. Streams of golden light stretched across the heavens like endless threads, weaving together in every direction. Each beam seemed to carry a story, a heartbeat, a cry lifted upward. Jesus looked at me and said, "These are prayers." Every sincere prayer, no matter how small, becomes part of this light. They move through hearts, through nations, in ways you cannot see. When fear rises, it is prayer that keeps the light alive. I stood in awe. I thought of my own prayers, the short, whispered words I once doubted had any meaning. But here, I could see their true form. Even the weakest prayer was shining, connected to something far greater than I ever imagined. I realized then that prayer was not about eloquence or length. It was about honesty. A child's simple, "God, help me," carried the same weight in heaven as the longest sermon. And these prayers, woven together, were holding back the flood of darkness threatening the world. My heart trembled. I finally understood, in the days of crisis, prayer is not optional, it is survival. It is the light that reminds the world that God is still listening, still reaching, still loving. When my eyes opened again, I was no longer walking in light, I was lying in a hospital bed. The doctors later told me I had been gone for almost 4 minutes. No heartbeat, no breath, no sign of life. They called it a miracle that I came back without damage. But I knew the truth, I had not just come back from death, I had been sent back with a mission. The memories of what I saw will never leave me. The oceans rising, the silence of darkness, the fear that divided hearts, the reality of hell, and the endless web of prayers. But above them all stood one truth, the eternal love of Jesus. His love was stronger than floods, brighter than darkness, and greater than fear. Since that day, I can no longer live as if faith is optional. I see faces on the street and wonder, do they know how loved they are? Do they understand that eternity is real? That every soul will spend it either with Him or apart from Him? Friend, if you're hearing my story, I beg you, do not wait. Tomorrow is not promised. Hope is not found in the world's security but in the arms of the one who holds eternity. Jesus has already chosen you. Now it is your turn to choose Him. Choose love. Choose life. Choose Him, while there is still time.